My aunt stole my fiancé for her daughter, but now everyone is crying because I took away the trust fund and they realized my ex was a lazy bum. I, a 28-year-old woman, was engaged to Ron, a 27-year-old man, for a year. We met in college, were friends but not very close. We started dating after college and were together for 4 years. Last year, we got engaged. We held a small ceremony with close family and friends. My aunt was also invited. Since attending my engagement, my aunt was impressed by my ex's charm. She couldn't stop praising how handsome and rich he was. It was unusual because she had never been that affectionate towards me. Her daughter, Lucia, 24, is extremely beautiful but dumb as a rock. My aunt always compared us in every aspect. I was good at academics, even though she was 4 years younger than me in school. My aunt compared our grades and commented on how her daughter was better than me. The funny part was when she compared her 8th grade report card to my 12th grade report card and declared that she was better than me. The joke is that Lucia couldn't pass high school. Ron and I were planning our wedding in October because I had to visit the UK for a summer program. Everything was going well between us when I left in June. We talked once a day due to the time difference. 2 weeks after starting, we began to drift apart. I asked what was wrong, and he didn't say anything clear, just said he was stressed about work. I thought the distance had affected our feelings. I didn't take it seriously because it wasn't a new relationship. I planned to resolve the issue after returning. A week before my program ended, he stopped talking to me. I felt so childish, wanting to resolve it, but he chose the easy way out and disappeared. I've always had a lot of pride, and although it hurt, I don't chase anyone. I kept living in my delusion that he would come for me. He didn't. Instead, after some time, my aunt showed up at my house with a wedding invitation. I found out he was going to marry my cousin, Lucia. What the hell? In the era of emails, she shows up with a printed copy of the invitation. She wanted to see my disappointment in person. It was one of the few moments when I felt completely bewildered. I was in shock, wondering, how could he fall in love with my cousin who can barely pay for her meals? But my aunt soon gave me the answer. She said, "I'm so sorry, dear. I understand your pain, but what can we do when people fall out of love? Maybe he couldn't handle the distance. Don't be mad at your cousin. Ron was the one who sought out Lucia for coffee because he had nothing else to do after work. You know how beautiful my princess is. You can't blame Ron for falling for her." I looked at her with red, tear-filled eyes. Normally, I don't tolerate my aunt and interrupt her, but this time I was so shocked that I couldn't say a word. I just stared at her and accepted her cruel, sugar-coated insults. She said, "Believe me, dear, I love you as much as I love Lucia." I yelled at her when she told me about Ron, but he came down to my house and politely confessed his deep love for Lucia. You know how humble and sweet he is. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I imagined Ron doing everything she described. She tried to hug me, but I blocked her. I wiped my tears and composed myself, saying I had something to attend to, and asked her to leave. She told me, "If you're thinking of contacting Ron, don't." "He blocked you," I asked him to. "It doesn't look good for my son-in-law to be in contact with his ex, you know?" I told her, "Fuck you and your son-in-law. I have much more to do in life than chasing other people's men." She got up and said, "Don't get discouraged, my love. I understand it will be hard for you to find another man at your age and with this appearance, but don't worry. There are many divorced men looking for a second love in life. I'm sure you'll find such a good man." I yelled, "Get out." I deeply regretted losing my composure and giving her the satisfaction of seeing my vulnerability, but it's okay. We all have weak moments in life when we simply can't stay strong. This news was much more painful than the ghosting. I'm not saying it would have been easy if he had cheated with any other woman, but it would have been much better than this. I would have cut him off and been sure not to see him again. But now, who knows? My aunt can show up any time to rub her daughter's prize in my face. Everyone among friends and family knew about Ron and me. Now I feel stupid for having had such a pompous engagement, now that he's going to marry Lucia. The story is evident to everyone about what happened in the background. My aunt has been weaving a different story that Ron found solace in Lucia because I was too stubborn and self-centered and prioritized my new career over him. She told everyone that Ron didn't want me to go to the summer program in the UK, yet I went and stopped talking to him. She even said that Ron suspected I was seeing someone in the UK. He heard a guy's voice in the background every time he called me and things like that. I've never been in touch with most of my relatives since I moved out of the house. Even as a teenager, I was distant from them because I didn't like their trivial conversations. Therefore, it was easier for my aunt to sell her lies. It feels so terrible. I know all this is ultimately for the better. I got rid of the cheater. There's light at the end of the tunnel. But you know what? When you're in the middle of the dark phase, it's just impossible to navigate through it, even though you know everything will be fine in a while. Update 1. Hello and thanks for cheering me up in my original post. I've been thinking about updating this for a long time. I thought, the day I no longer feel anything for my ex, I will update it. And here we are today. Indeed, things have gotten better and there's a cherry on top. Wait for that. That phase was really dark and long. It's not that I haven't been through a breakup before, but this was horrible because he was my fiancé. My mom stayed with me for a week and it helped to have her by my side. However, I felt sick the moment she left. I had been with Ron for so many years that every place brought back memories of him, a good enough reason to leave the city. I applied for jobs in the UK and got a very promising one in Leeds. Nothing like that. I packed my bags and left. Professional tip, for me, if someone is struggling to move on after a difficult past, nothing heals better and faster than a change of scenery. Yes, only if your situation allows. I understand that not everyone has the opportunity to move so easily. Anyway, moving to Leeds made me feel like I was reborn. I was surprised at how quickly I managed to get over it. It took a better turn a few days ago when my mom called me and asked if Ron was unemployed. I said yes, he was. I mean, not unemployed, but he left his job a year ago to pursue his passion for writing. Here's something interesting. Ron wanted to be a writer and wrote here and there, but he wasn't making much progress with his full-time job. So I decided to help him build a career around writing. We had an agreement where I would work full-time while he laid the groundwork to start a business, and eventually, I would quit my job so we could both work on our own business. Yes, but he screwed up. My mom laughed so hard when I told her these details. She said my aunt went to see her the other day and screamed, "Why didn't you tell me Ron was a bum?" My mom was confused because as far as she knew, he was working and was doing quite well financially. My mom said she had no idea about this. My aunt told my mom that Ron insisted that Lucia do an accelerated course that would get her a better paying job so she could cover household expenses for both of them. He wanted to execute that plan with Lucia. What he didn't know was that my aunt married him to Lucia so they could both live off her income. Well, they played jokes on each other. The last I heard, Lucia was working part-time as a receptionist at a restaurant, making table reservations. I'm not sure they can both live off a receptionist's income. It may sound disdainful to look down on Lucia's profession. Well, maybe yes, maybe I don't care. I would love to see the disappointment and anguish on my aunt's face when the truth about Ron comes to light. There's another layer to this. My aunt was the mistress of Lucia's dad, and when he died, his legal wife kicked them out of the house. That's why my aunt lived with my grandparents, living off their pension, and sometimes my dad and uncle helped them financially. Lucia has always been a foolish girl. She doesn't like to work, nor is she capable of it. She failed high school twice and finally dropped out. That receptionist job she got was also thanks to my uncle. He recommended her to a friend's restaurant. Nowadays, even a receptionist job requires a high school diploma. If you think poetic justice has been served, not yet. After I finished lamenting, it was time to act. He was still at his job. Together, we bought a trust fund that we were going to use later for our business. I had full access to that trust fund because I handled our finances. I was putting money in there every month. I would say 20% of the money in that trust fund was his. I liquidated the entire trust fund when I found out about his infidelity. He has no idea the fund no longer exists. He's still delusional, thinking he'll get the money from there, because he told Lucia that once my anger calmed down, he would contact me and get his 50% of the trust fund. Delusional. If you think I'm a scammer, well, I'm not, because I spent an equivalent amount of money on Ron in his bad days. After Ron quit his full-time job, he had a hard time getting writing gigs. It was hard for him to make ends meet, so I gave him access to one of my spare bank accounts where I was saving some money for his monthly expenses. I supported him by all means. I think what I did is fair. If we had been married, I would have received alimony. This trust fund was the closest thing because we were almost married. Now, I wonder about his future business plans. He has no savings and no job. He's no longer my problem. Update 2. Here's the next update. This Christmas has been delightful. I had the satisfaction of seeing the disappointment on my ex's face. I went back to my mom's house, and he came knocking on my door. He was here asking for the money from his trust fund and also demanding 50% of it. I said, "What money?" He said he had saved money in the trust fund that we were going to use for our business. I said, "Oh, that trust fund, I liquidated it." He went crazy. How could you do that? We had saved that money for our business. What are we going to do now? I said, excuse me, there is no we here. You are my cousin's husband, and the person you should call we is across the street. He took a deep breath and said, look, I know I hurt you, and you have every right to be mad at me, but I need that money from the trust fund. I have no job. The client I was writing for dropped me. I'm looking for another client. Lucia doesn't make enough for both of us. I haven't paid rent for the last 2 months, and if I'm late one more month, the landlord threatened to evict me. Please understand my situation. Why the hell should I understand your cheating ass? Remember what you did to me, I yelled. Cheating doesn't give you the right to take my money, he said. Your money? You only own 20% of the trust fund, I said. Whatever, I want it back, he said. Remember the money I gave you for your monthly expenses? What about that? I took your 20% of the trust fund to get some of it back, I said. Now he was calm and said, he had spent that money as my boyfriend, so I shouldn't claim it. By that logic, you gave me the trust fund money when you were my boyfriend, so you shouldn't ask for it either, I countered. He threatened to sue me for taking his part. I told him that if he did, I would also press charges for card theft because he used my debit card to withdraw the money for his monthly expenses. I reminded him that if we calculated who owed what, he could end up in debt, so he better watch his tone and accept the truth. He left angry with a bitter face. If this encounter wasn't enough, my aunt and Lucia showed up at my parents' house looking for me. They were here to ask about the trust fund money. Ron had told them that I took his share of the money and now he had nothing. He was ruined. I told them it wasn't their business and that I wouldn't discuss my matters with them. Lucia still pestered me to tell her why her future was at stake. I said, this concept is beyond your understanding, so it's better you stay out of it. My aunt yelled at me for talking to Lucia like that and said I should lower my ego when talking to Lucia because she is more successful than me since Ron left me for her. My dad came to my room after hearing my aunt's voice. My aunt melted at the sight of him. She said she was casually talking to me about her distress. Dad said he heard everything, and if she dared raise her voice at me again, he would cut off all financial help he had been giving her. He said he regretted not interfering in my matters earlier because they gave my aunt carte blanche to humiliate me, but not anymore. Dad told her that if Lucia was so successful, then she should help Ron manage the household and save them from being evicted. Apparently, my aunt and Lucia didn't know about Ron's poor financial condition or the rent arrears. They were shocked. Lucia started sobbing in front of my dad, saying Ron had ruined her life because he couldn't support her. She was worried about where they would live if the landlord really evicted them. She asked me to release Ron's share of the trust fund so they could rebuild their life. My dad said he was proud of me for standing up for myself and laughed at my aunt for going behind my back and seducing Ron for Lucia. She should have thought about the consequences before prostituting her daughter. My aunt started crying, saying she did everything to secure her daughter's future. My aunt changes colors quickly depending on the situation. She said Lucia doesn't have a father to back her like you, nor is she educated like you to earn money by herself, so she has to take care of her. She thought Ron could take care of her daughter, but look, the poor fatty betrayed Lucia and broke this. She said she could have told me Ron was unemployed, but you let your cousin marry a bum, but I don't blame you for that. You have your own reasons for hiding the truth. My dad stood up and asked them to leave. The ones who turned their backs on me to seduce my fiancé and then came to my house to rub it in my face that their daughter married my fiancé were them. Now that things are falling apart, she's blaming me for hiding the truth about Ron. What the hell? Well, before they left, I said don't worry about Lucia. There are plenty of sugar daddies waiting to shower their love on girls like Lucia. I'm sure you both can find one. That was very mean of me, but I'm not a good person, by the way, nor am I interested in being one with them. She was the one who started the humiliation when she came to tell me about her daughter's wedding. I don't know what happened after that. I wish I had recorded her calling Ron a bum. He deserved to know what his mother-in-law and wife think of him. However, if she could call him that in front of us, she could do it in front of his face too. Update 3. Ron emailed me admitting how much he had screwed things up. He had borrowed money from a friend to pay the overdue rent but fell behind again because his client delayed payment for his writing work. The landlord gave him notice to vacate the house. He asked my aunt to let them live there for a few months, but my grandparents refused. Ron didn't know the truth, that the house wasn't my aunt's. They lied saying it was my aunt's house and my grandparents lived there, when in reality it was the other way around. They're a bunch of liars. Ron mentioned that Lucia also lied about her education and job, claiming she was a manager at a restaurant and exaggerated her salary. This led Ron to think they could follow our business plan together. I'm surprised how he couldn't see Lucia's lack of intelligence during their dates. Did they really talk, or was it just a casual encounter? He mentioned he was giving up his writing dreams and looking for a job in his previous field. I ignored his first email. A few days later, he sent another one, this time apologizing. He expressed regret for betraying me and acknowledged that his life had gone downhill. He mentioned how my aunt had taken Lucia, manipulating her like a puppet, so now he was alone. Probably Lucia didn't love Ron, she probably followed her mom's plan to attract him. It makes me think about the power of beauty. No matter how much we advocate for intelligence, it seems beauty has the upper hand. Even the brightest minds can fall for it. However, I have no desire to forgive Ron or reconcile with him. Now he is remorseful, but he's a cheater. Once a cheater, always a cheater. His life might be a mess partly because I liquidated the trust fund, but I have no regrets. I was fair to myself. He made a choice and now has to live with it. I replied to his email telling him never to contact me again and blocked him. I thought about warning him that my aunt would probably abandon him to Lucia once she found a better paying job, but why should I comfort him? He shattered my soul by cheating on me with my cousin. His misery is nothing but gossip to me now. I discussed everything with my mom and we had a good laugh. She said she is satisfied now that karma has caught up with them all. Update 4. Well, life is good, at least much better than when I started writing here. It's been 2 years since everything blew up, and there's a big difference between my life and the rest of the people involved. I don't know where to start because this is a bit long, but I'll try to make it very short, though I don't want to leave out any details. To begin with, I'll talk about myself. Not because I'm self-centered, but to give a little update for those who asked, and then start with the interesting part. I still have my lead job and everything is going very well. I've even met a guy here and we are dating. As for Ron, he has found a job and, according to some friends, he is very miserable. He keeps complaining that he lost his dream job and has to work in something he doesn't like, blaming a witch, which would be me. I could be offended, but the truth is I'm very happy with what's happening to him. Remember, I'm not a good person. Besides, it's not like he can't work for a while, save up and then try again, or work at night on what he wants to do while maintaining a day job to support himself. But it seems he's not that committed to his dream job, in quotes, because he's not willing to make the effort. As for my aunt and cousin, the most wonderful thing in the world happened. My grandparents kicked them out. They got tired of all the drama and having them live with them, so they asked them to leave. Now they are renting together because they have nothing else to do, as they are both a bit useless. If I were them, I'd start looking for a new boyfriend quickly. It's not like Lucia will get younger and prettier over time. We also know that in her case, intelligence isn't something that will improve. Yes, I know I'm very bad, but that's karma. Well, in the end, it wasn't as long as I thought it would be. But at least in broad strokes, I think I've told you the most important things.